Packing up to leave the hospital and head home was always such a sweet moment. There's always so much excitement and anticipation to be bringing this little one home.
The Duggar family has once again found themselves in the spotlight, but this time it is not for a joyous announcement or a major family gathering. Instead, it is because of a frightening health scare involving Jessa Duggar Seawald's newborn baby. Reports indicate that Jessa's latest child was rushed to the intensive care unit, ICU, shortly after birth, sparking a wave of concern, prayers, and emotional reactions from fans worldwide. The story has quickly spread across social media, igniting discussions about the pressures of parenthood, the fragility of life, and the unwavering faith that has defined the Duggar family for years. What began as an exciting new chapter for Jessa and her husband, Ben Seawald, turned into a nerve-wracking ordeal. The couple, who are already parents to 4 children, Spurgeon, Henry, Ivy, and Fern, were eagerly anticipating the arrival of their 5th baby. Yet, within hours of the delivery, complications arose that required urgent medical intervention. According to those close to the family, the newborn experienced unexpected breathing difficulties after birth, a common but deeply unsettling complication. Medical staff reportedly acted quickly, rushing the baby to the neonatal ICU for specialized care. For Jessa and Ben, who have always spoken openly about their parenting journey and the challenges of childbirth, this emergency was a painful reminder that even with experience, no pregnancy or delivery is without risks. Jessa herself has previously endured complicated pregnancies and heartbreaking losses. In 2021, she opened up about suffering a miscarriage, sharing her grief with fans who offered overwhelming support. That loss made this most recent pregnancy both a blessing and a source of anxiety. Many Duggar fans followed along closely as she documented her prenatal journey, eagerly awaiting updates on her baby's health. When news broke that the newborn was rushed to ICU, emotions immediately ran high. Supporters flooded online forums and Instagram pages with heartfelt prayers, urging strength for Jessa and Ben while expressing hope for the baby's recovery. Faith has always been at the core of the Duggar family's identity, and during times of crisis, prayer becomes a powerful, uniting force. Fans across the globe have taken to social media with messages like, "Praying for the Seawald family," "Stay strong, Jessa, God has this in control," and "May your baby be healed and brought home soon." Some supporters even organized virtual prayer circles using hashtags like #PrayersForJessa and #SeawaldBaby to spread encouragement. For many longtime followers of the Duggars, these moments of collective prayer harken back to other health crises the family has faced, such as Josie Duggar's premature birth years ago. The Duggar legacy, despite controversies, has always included a narrative of resilience through faith, and this emergency has once again highlighted how deeply connected their supporters feel to their struggles. To understand the weight of this moment, it's important to reflect on Jessa and Ben's parenting story. Married in 2014, the couple quickly built a family rooted in love, faith, and a sense of purpose. Each of their children has brought joy, but also challenges. Their second child, Henry, experienced early developmental struggles, prompting Jessa to be candid about seeking medical advice and therapy. Ivy's birth was also complicated, leading Jessa to share her recovery process openly with fans. Their youngest daughter, Fern, arrived after Jessa's emotional miscarriage, serving as a symbol of healing. For Jessa, every child has carried a unique story, and she has not shied away from sharing both the highs and lows of motherhood with the public. Now, with her 5th baby facing time in the ICU, Jessa finds herself navigating yet another emotional trial. Unlike previous challenges, this one strikes at the heart of every parent's deepest fear: uncertainty about their newborn's health. The Duggar family has faced health crises before, and fans were quick to draw comparisons. The most notable case was that of Josie Duggar, Jim Bob and Michelle's youngest child, who was born prematurely at just 25 weeks in 2009. Josie's fragile early days in the ICU were documented on 19 Kids and Counting, making viewers deeply invested in her survival. Many fans now see parallels between Josie's story and Jessa's newborn's current fight. For some, these comparisons bring hope, since Josie eventually grew into a strong and healthy teenager despite her rough start. Others worry, remembering the long months of uncertainty the family endured. The Duggars' long history in the public eye means that every crisis, whether joyous or tragic, feels personal to their fan base. For those who have watched the family for decades, Jessa's newborn being rushed to ICU feels like yet another chapter in a story they've been following closely. Though Jessa has yet to release a detailed statement about the emergency, it is not difficult to imagine the emotional toll this experience has taken on her. Known for her steady demeanor and grounded faith, Jessa has often been a source of strength for her siblings and fans alike. But like any mother, seeing her newborn in distress would be heartbreaking. Her past openness about miscarriage, postpartum recovery, and the challenges of balancing motherhood with personal health suggests that she may eventually share her journey once more. For now, however, fans are respecting her privacy while continuing to show unwavering support. Ben, too, has always been vocal about his love for his family. The husband and father who often appears in family photos and videos reading scripture or playing with the children has likely leaned heavily on his faith during this crisis. For both Jessa and Ben, their belief that God has a plan may be the anchor carrying them through these uncertain days. While the majority of fans have responded with compassion and prayers, some corners of social media have speculated about the circumstances surrounding the ICU rush. Some questioned whether the emergency was due to complications during labor, while others wondered if it could be tied to Jessa's history of complicated pregnancies. Others, however, criticized the speculation, calling for empathy over curiosity. As one commenter put it, "This isn't the time for gossip, it's a time for prayer and support." The Duggar family's public image has always been polarizing, with critics often scrutinizing their choices. Yet moments like this tend to bridge divides, reminding even the harshest critics that at the core, this is about a mother, father, and a fragile newborn fighting for health and survival. For many fans, Jessa's situation serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life. It has reignited conversations about the unpredictability of childbirth, the resilience of families in crisis, and the importance of community support. The Duggar family, despite ongoing controversies surrounding some of its members, has always emphasized faith as the cornerstone of resilience. For Jessa, this ICU scare could eventually become another testimony of endurance, a story she shares in the hope of inspiring other mothers who face similar struggles. If the past is any indicator, Jessa may one day look back on this moment not only with pain, but also gratitude, seeing it as part of a bigger journey of faith and motherhood. What's next for Jessa and her baby? At the time of this report, there have been no official medical updates released about the newborn's condition. The lack of details has only fueled both worry and hope as fans cling to every small sign of progress. If the baby remains in ICU for an extended period, it could mean a long road of monitoring and specialized care. However, many babies who begin life in intensive care units go on to thrive, especially with the kind of dedication and prayer support surrounding the Seawald family right now. For Jessa and Ben, the next few days and weeks are likely to be filled with emotional highs and lows. Bringing a newborn home is always a life-changing moment, but doing so after an ICU stay makes it all the more precious. Perhaps one of the most inspiring aspects of this situation is the way that the broader Duggar fan community has rallied together. Despite differing backgrounds, beliefs, and opinions about the family, thousands of people have united in prayer and encouragement. In a world often divided by criticism and controversy, moments like these revealed the deep empathy people can feel for one another. Even those who may not agree with the Duggars' values have expressed heartfelt wishes for the baby's recovery. This groundswell of support demonstrates the powerful bond between public figures and their audiences. Fans have journeyed alongside the Duggars for decades, and when crisis strikes, the connection feels deeply personal. As of now, Jessa's newborn remains in the ICU and the story is still unfolding. Whether it becomes a tale of miraculous recovery, a testimony of resilience, or a painful reminder of life's fragility, only time will tell. What is clear is that Jessa and Ben are not alone. Their faith, their family, and their vast community of supporters are standing with them through every moment of
When
uncertainty.
it comes to the Duggar family, surprises, speculation, and carefully constructed reveals have long been part of the storytelling that keeps their audience invested. Jessa Duggar Seawald, one of the most recognizable daughters from the famed Duggar household, and her husband Ben Seawald have recently managed to capture fans' attention in a way that recalls the early days of the family's TLC prominence. After giving birth to their fifth child, Jessa and Ben stretched out the excitement by releasing not one, not two, but 4 separate YouTube videos documenting the baby's arrival before finally unveiling his name. The strategy worked exactly as intended, keeping fans waiting, watching, guessing, and speculating as each new video provided another piece of the puzzle without delivering the single detail everyone was anticipating most. Now that the name has been revealed, the story of how the Seawalds handled this milestone has become one of the biggest talking points surrounding the Duggar orbit in months. For anyone who has followed Jessa's journey from her teenage years on 19 kids and counting to her life now as a 30-something mother of 5, the approach is not surprising. Jessa has always understood the value of pacing a story, of teasing details to hold an audience's attention. Growing up in front of cameras trained her to balance authenticity with intrigue, and in her post-TLC life she has leaned heavily on YouTube to maintain that connection with fans. The 4-part video series surrounding the birth of her son reflected this instinct. It began with clips of the hospital stay and Jessa's labor, transitioned into Ben's role as an attentive husband and father, showed sweet reactions from the couple's other children meeting their sibling for the first time, and concluded with emotional reflections on family life. Through it all, the question of the baby's name remained unanswered, keeping viewers returning each time. Tactic was effective because in Duggar culture, names are never just names. They are markers of faith, tradition, and family identity. Jessa, like all her siblings, grew up in a household where every child's name began with the letter J, a decision her parents Jim, Bob, and Michelle made to tie their enormous brood together symbolically. In starting her own family, Jessa and Ben did not carry over that exact tradition but instead established their own path with unique names that often carried theological or symbolic significance. Spurgeon, their firstborn, was named after Charles Spurgeon, a renowned 19th-century preacher whose sermons are still studied today. Their second child, Henry, bore a name more traditional but still strong and timeless. Ivy Jane, their first daughter, brought a touch of vintage charm with a nod to both nature and femininity, while Fern, their fourth child, leaned fully into the natural world in a name that was simple but evocative. Each name had sparked conversation among fans, sometimes even controversy, especially Spurgeon, which divided opinion for its rarity and unusual sound. This history set the stage for intense curiosity about what the couple would choose for their fifth child. Would they follow the tradition of naming after religious figures again, or would they lean into the trend of botanical and nature-inspired names? Online forums buzzed with guesses, ranging from Old Testament names like Ezra or Gideon to classic choices like James or John. Some suggested that after Spurgeon, the couple might continue the preacher theme, perhaps choosing something like Wesley or Calvin. Others suspected they might surprise everyone with something modern and unexpected, a name that would signal their shift away from their roots. For weeks, the speculation grew as each YouTube video gave intimate glimpses of the Seawald household but still withheld the answer. Finally, in the 4th installment of the series, Jessa and Ben revealed that their son's name is George Augustine Seawald. The announcement came at the end of a video filled with heartfelt moments, and when the words were spoken, the floodgates of fan reaction opened. The choice of George carried with it a sense of stability, dignity, and history. A name that evokes images of kings and leaders, George is both timeless and globally recognized. Augustine, chosen as the middle name, offered the kind of theological depth that Ben has long been drawn to, referencing St. Augustine of Hippo, one of the most influential theologians in Christian history. Together, the name reflected both strength and spirituality, a combination that satisfied fans who had hoped for something deeply meaningful yet accessible. The response to the name was overwhelmingly positive, though, as is always the case with the Duggar family, there were dissenting voices. Some fans felt that George Augustine was a more mainstream choice compared to Spurgeon and wondered if the Seawalds had intentionally chosen something less polarizing after years of commentary about their earlier decisions. Others praised the couple for giving their son a name that would serve him well throughout his life, one that carried gravitas without being unusual to the point of difficulty. On social media, the conversation stretched into debates about whether the Seawalds had struck a new balance in their naming style, one that leaned into classic appeal while still honoring their religious convictions. For Jessa and Ben, the importance of this decision went beyond personal preference. It was a chance to show their fans that they are intentional about every aspect of parenting. Jessa, who has often been one of the Duggar daughters most closely associated with motherhood and homemaking, took the opportunity to share insights into her thought process. She explained how the couple had discussed potential names for months, weighing not only the meaning but also how the name would fit with their other children's. They wanted something cohesive, something that sounded like it belonged in the family lineup while still giving their new son his own unique identity. That careful consideration is part of why the suspense was stretched out across so many videos. For them, it wasn't just about keeping fans entertained, though that was certainly an outcome, but about underscoring that naming a child is not a trivial matter. The broader context of the Seawalds' YouTube strategy is also important. Since TLC's Counting On was cancelled following the controversies surrounding Josh Duggar, many of the siblings have had to find their own paths for maintaining public presence. Jinger Duggar Vualo has written a memoir and leaned into rebranding herself as a California-based mom distancing from fundamentalism. Jill Duggar Dillard has spoken out in her own book, sharing the painful aspects of life under Jim Bob's control. Others have stepped back from the public eye almost entirely. Jessa, however, has charted a middle path. She continues to embrace the Duggar name while simultaneously building her own direct platform, bypassing television networks and using YouTube as the medium of choice. The 4-part baby series is a perfect example of how she and Ben have learned to engage directly with their loyal audience, giving them the intimate family access they crave while retaining complete creative control over the narrative. The approach has also provided Jessa with something she never fully had during her TLC days: the ability to show unvarnished reality. On her channel, she can share the messy moments, the chaotic mornings with 4 children underfoot, the imperfections of her home, and the stress of parenting alongside the joys. In doing so, she has tapped into the modern wave of relatable motherhood content that thrives on authenticity. By structuring the baby's birth journey across multiple videos, she mirrored real life, where moments unfold gradually rather than in neatly edited television arcs. Fans could experience the anticipation, the exhaustion, the laughter, and the tears almost as if they were part of the family themselves. As the dust settles after the name reveal, one thing is clear: Jessa and Ben know how to keep themselves relevant in a media environment that has not always been kind to the Duggar name. The careful rollout of their son's name not only gave them a surge in YouTube engagement but also cemented their position as one of the Duggar couples most capable of navigating the post-TLC landscape. Their ability to balance faith-driven decisions, family storytelling, and digital media savvy is a blueprint that others in the family may or may not be able to replicate. With George Augustine now officially introduced to the world, the Seawalds are moving into their next chapter as a family of 7, and fans are already eager to see how they will share the ongoing story of raising their children in a world that has drastically changed since the days when Jessa herself was just one of Jim Bob and Michelle's many kids on a hit reality show. When Jessa Duggar Seawald welcomed her newest child into the world, many fans thought the news would be accompanied almost instantly by the baby's name, as is the tradition in much of the celebrity and influencer culture where birth announcements tend to arrive complete with Instagram-ready captions. Yet in classic Duggar fashion, Jessa and her husband Ben chose a path that was slower, more deliberate, and layered with anticipation. Instead of rushing to assign their son a name immediately after birth, they waited an entire week, a choice that both surprised and intrigued their loyal followers. By the time they made the official reveal, the decision felt imbued with more thought, symbolism, and meaning than a casual announcement could have carried. The delay not only heightened speculation but also underscored how much importance the couple places on naming, a process they have always approached with the weight of family tradition, personal faith, and lasting legacy in mind. For those who have watched Jessa grow from a teenage daughter in the sprawling Duggar household into a woman navigating her own journey as a wife and mother of 5, the decision to wait reflected both continuity and change. Continuity in the sense that the Duggar family has always attached deep meaning to names, often choosing ones with biblical resonance or personal significance, and change in the sense that Jessa and Ben were no longer bound to the rigid conventions that her parents followed. Jim, Bob, and Michelle famously named all 19 of their children with names beginning with the letter J, a unifying theme that gave the Duggar family its instantly recognizable brand on television. But Jessa and Ben stepped away from that approach from the very beginning of their parenting journey. Their children's names, Spurgeon, Henry, Ivy, Fern, and now their newest son, reflect a different philosophy, one that balances individuality, history, and faith without the need to conform to a single initial or obvious pattern. When Jessa finally revealed that the name chosen for her son was George Augustine Seawald, fans quickly understood why it had taken time. Choice was simple yet profound, elegant yet weighty. George is a name with centuries of history behind it, evoking not only royal associations but also a sense of timeless strength. It is familiar without being trendy, rooted in tradition but not weighed down by excessive uniqueness. Augustine as the middle name brought in a rich spiritual dimension, referencing St. Augustine of Hippo, one of the most influential theologians in Christian history, whose writings shaped Western thought and Christian doctrine for centuries. Together, the names George Augustine create an impression of dignity, stability, and intellectual depth, qualities that Jessa and Ben clearly hope their son will embody. The process of waiting a week to make the announcement was not without precedent in the Duggar universe, though it was unusual enough to spark commentary. In the past, many of Jessa's siblings revealed their children's names quickly, sometimes within hours or days of birth. The week-long delay this time created a sense of drama and mystery, which fans eagerly dissected. On social media platforms and fan forums, speculation abounded. Some thought the Seawalds might be struggling to agree on a name, while others believed they were waiting for the perfect inspiration or perhaps even angling to maximize engagement on Jessa's YouTube channel. Whatever the theories, the anticipation grew with each passing day until the reveal finally settled the matter. The name George Augustine fits neatly within the broader tapestry of the Seawald children's names while also marking a subtle evolution. Their first son, Spurgeon, was perhaps their boldest naming choice, one that startled even some loyal fans with its unusual sound and historical specificity. Named after Charles Spurgeon, the renowned preacher, that decision announced to the world that Jessa and Ben would not shy away from making unconventional choices rooted in theology. Their second son, Henry, balanced that with a name more traditional and widely accepted, suggesting that the couple also appreciated the comfort of the familiar. Their daughter Ivy carried vintage charm and a botanical flair, while Fern leaned even more heavily into nature-inspired simplicity. George Augustine now blends these threads, combining the classic with the spiritual in a way that feels both cohesive with their other children and distinct enough to stand on its own. In the world of celebrity baby naming, where stars often gravitate toward the eccentric and headline-grabbing, Jessa and Ben's choice stands out precisely because of its restraint. It is not the kind of name that invites mockery or raises eyebrows for being outlandish, nor is it so common as to feel forgettable. It occupies a sweet spot of timeless respectability, the sort of name that can be carried with dignity from infancy to adulthood. Fans quickly recognized this balance, with many praising the couple for giving their son a name that honors tradition while still carrying personal meaning. The decision also says much about where Jessa and Ben stand in their own journey of carving out an identity separate from the Duggar legacy. Since the cancellation of Counting On following the controversies surrounding Jessa's older brother Josh, each Duggar sibling has been forced to navigate their relationship with public life in unique ways. Jill Duggar-Dillard, for instance, has spoken openly about her estrangement from her parents and the ways in which she has sought healing outside the family's control. Jinger Duggar-Vuolo has embarked on a rebranding process, publishing a book that critiques aspects of her upbringing while presenting herself as a more modern, independent woman living in Los Angeles. Others, like Jana, have retreated from the spotlight almost entirely. Jessa, however, has chosen to stay close to the family's core values while still asserting her independence through the storytelling freedom of YouTube. Her baby's name reveal, like so much of her content, reflects a balancing act between tradition and autonomy, between the roots she cannot escape and the future she is determined to shape on her own terms. The fan reaction to the name was swift and widespread. On Instagram, YouTube comments, and Reddit threads dedicated to Duggar news, fans dissected every aspect of the choice. Many expressed relief that the name was more mainstream than Spurgeon, noting that George would likely face fewer raised eyebrows in everyday life. Others fixated on the theological weight of Augustine, appreciating the Seawald's continued commitment to embedding their faith in their family's identity. A smaller group, as always, found reasons to critique, arguing that the week-long delay felt like unnecessary theatrics designed to generate views. But even these criticisms acknowledge the success of the strategy, because by delaying the reveal, Jessa and Ben ensured that their announcement would generate maximum buzz. This method of storytelling, gradual, suspenseful, personal, has become Jessa's signature in the years since TLC cameras stopped rolling. Where once she was one character among many in a reality show ensemble cast, she is now the director, producer, and narrator of her own family's saga. The week-long wait for a name was not only a personal decision but also a narrative device, one that kept her audience invested and guessing. It showed an understanding of digital media engagement that many influencers strive for, the ability to turn a deeply personal life event into content that feels authentic while also being strategically paced. Beyond the media strategy, the decision to wait also highlights a quieter but more profound truth about the Seawald's approach to family life. In a culture where instant gratification and immediate announcements are the norm, they chose to pause. They chose to give themselves the gift of a week to live in the intimate cocoon of newborn life, to pray, to reflect, to deliberate, and to ensure that the name they gave their son was the right one. That kind of intentionality is increasingly rare, and it resonates with many parents who know the weight of naming a child and the permanence of that decision. The story of George Augustine's naming will likely be remembered not only as a sweet family milestone but also as an example of how Jessa and Ben are continuing to chart their own course in a post-TLC world. They may no longer be under the constant gaze of a television audience, but they remain figures of fascination, and their choices, whether in parenting, faith, or lifestyle, continue to ripple outward in conversations among fans and critics alike. In waiting a week to announce their son's name, they created a story that was both personal and public, rooted in the sacred act of naming while amplified by the modern machinery of social media storytelling. And in the end, the name they chose spoke volumes, not only about their values and hopes for their son but about their own evolving identity as a family that is both part of the Duggar legacy and apart from it. The name George Augustine fits neatly within the broader tapestry of the Seawald children's names while also marking a subtle evolution. Their first son, Spurgeon, was perhaps their boldest naming choice, one that startled even some loyal fans with its unusual sound and historical specificity. Named after Charles Spurgeon, the renowned preacher, that decision announced to the world that Jessa and Ben would not shy away from making unconventional choices rooted in theology. Their second son, Henry, balanced that with a name more traditional and widely accepted, suggesting that the couple also appreciated the comfort of the familiar. Their daughter Ivy carried vintage charm and a botanical flair, while Fern leaned even more heavily into nature-inspired simplicity.